ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
Christopher Scase, young, handsome entrepreneur. He finds epic success in the 80s.
He came with that cowboy energy. He was doing big things.
Scase becomes a media mogul.
He outbid the legendary Rupert Murdoch.
His empire teeters, but he outfoxes them all. I'm Mark Humphreys. Search for ABC Rewind and look for Scase, Fall of a Tycoon on the ABC Listen app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Since the assassination of Charlie Kirk, there's been raging debate in the US about free speech. Well, now a memorial has been held in Arizona, where President Trump remembered Mr Kirk as a martyr and again attacked the likes of talk show host Jimmy Kimmel, whose show was suspended last week. Today, Zack Beauchamp, a senior correspondent at Vox, on how Trump's deploying the Authoritarian playbook. I'm Sam Hawley on Gadigal land in Sydney. This is ABC News Daily. Zack, it has been a few days now, of course, since Jimmy Kimmel was taken off air on ABC in America. But the stakes are really so high, aren't they? It's much bigger than just his case.
No, Jimmy Kimmel is a stand-in for the question of what degree of free speech will exist in the United States under the Trump administration. This is the issue in America. Kimmel getting pulled off the air is a sign that the government not only has inordinate power over what people can say, but that this government in particular is willing to wield it in ways that are so obviously undemocratic and so straightforwardly against the basic idea of the First Amendment that it's really freaked a lot of people out.
All right, well, we'll look more deeply in a moment at the cancelling of Jimmy Kimmel and what that means for democracy in the United States. But first of all, he was taken off air, of course, because of comments he made about the alleged shooter in Charlie Kirk's assassination.
Some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the
Now, a huge memorial service has been held for Mr Kirk.
Tens of thousands of people gathered at a stadium to remember the right-wing activist who was shot dead at a university in Utah nearly 2 weeks ago.
A fusion of religion and politics, two of the deep loves of Charlie Kirk woven throughout his memorial service.
He's a martyr now for American freedom. I know I speak for everyone here today when I say that none of us will ever forget Charlie Kirk, and neither now will history.
How significant a moment is this in America right now?
I worried as soon as I heard that someone had shot Charlie Kirk, I worried that this would be a moment that would potentially break the country, right? Not in the sense of causing it to sever in half or something like that, but shatter what remained, the very thin reed of shared norms and a sense of restraint in American politics. Even Erica Kirk, Charlie Kirk's wife, if anyone had a reason to grieve, my God, the woman lost her husband. I just can't imagine the loss she's going through. And she goes up and she says that she forgives his killer.
On the cross, our Savior said, "Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do." That man, I forgive him.
I mean, this is a Christian service, right? They were a very Christian family. And then Trump goes up and he says, I can't believe this. Like when I first saw it, Charlie is the kind of guy who didn't hate his enemies. I'm not like that. I hate my enemies. I don't want what's best for them.
He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent. And I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry. I am sorry, Erica.
And it's just, this is the opposite of trying to bring the country together in a moment where tensions are as high as they've been. I mean, maybe in my whole lifetime. But the only other comparable situation I can think of is January 6th. But this might very well be worse than the immediate aftermath of January 6th in terms of, direct partisan tensions. And yet Trump, the irresponsibility of it, as somebody who's supposed to be the president of all Americans, not just a handful of them, and the contrast with the way that Erica Kirk spoke, I just can't fathom that.
Well, Donald Trump, during this service, he also took the opportunity to take aim at Jimmy Kimmel once again.
And the same commentators who this week are screaming fascism over a canceled late-night TV show where the anchor had no talent and no ratings. Last week were implying that Charlie Kirk deserved what happened to him.
I mean, would you have said that at a memorial? If someone you loved had died, or someone you cared about, or even someone you were just friends with, and you were invited to speak on that stage, would you have talked like that? Like, I just gotta assume the answer is no, right?
All right, well, Zack, let's look more deeply now at the cancelling of Jimmy Kimmel and how Donald Trump is trying to control the narrative. Now, you think this is sort of out of the playbook of the likes of Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary, where over time he's really reined in the independent press and replaced it with just a loyal media landscape.
What Trump has done since Charlie Kirk died has been straight out of that textbook, right? It's just beforehand, they did a number of things that I think were worryingly authoritarian, but it didn't add up to a systematic and effective agenda for turning America into this kind of competitive authoritarian regime, into the kind of thing that you see in Hungary. What's been happening since has been very targeted, and to me, as someone who's seen this before, extremely alarming. The Kimmel thing is a really telling example, not just because Jimmy Kimmel was suspended. That's bad enough, right? That's clearly an attack on free speech. But the way that they did it.
Yeah, so understanding how this was done is really important, what was going on behind the scenes before Jimmy Kimmel was cancelled. Now, the head of the FCC, which is the broadcasting watchdog, if you like, Brendan Carr, he appeared on The Benny Show, which is a podcast which is hosted by this guy, Benny Jones.
Frankly, I think that it's really sort of past time that a lot of these licensed broadcasters themselves push back on Comcast and Disney and say, listen, we are going to preempt, we are not going to run Kimmel anymore until you straighten this out, because we
Now, Brendan Carr was appointed by Donald Trump, and the FCC is really powerful because it's responsible for approving major TV deals and mergers.
Yes, you're right. And it's essential to understanding why this is so alarming to people who have studied the decline of democracy in other countries. So the FCC is an agency, a federal agency, whose primary job is regulating broadcast networks. And this guy, Brendan Carr, who's the head of the FCC, he starts going after broadcast networks on incredibly specious charges, right? Trying to punish them. And the FCC has real power over broadcast networks, specifically in a variety of different ways, because it can affect the stations that broadcast them. Largely, not entirely, but largely owned by a handful of mega corporations. A large number of these stations are owned by a company called Nexstar. Mm-hmm. Nexstar owns 39% of the broadcast stations in the United States. They also want to expand that beyond the cap. They have a bid in, a $6.2 billion deal to buy one of their competitors. But they need FCC approval to do it. So here's Brendan Carr saying, I'll just take your networks off the air, potentially, if you keep airing Jimmy Kimmel. And the implied threat there, if you're a Nexstar, is, well, if we're taking your networks off the air, we're definitely not going to approve your merger. Nexstar, within hours of Carr's threat, releases a statement saying, what Jimmy Kimmel said was completely unacceptable and against our values, and we on Nexstar will not be airing Jimmy Kimmel on any of our ABC affiliates.
All right, so just to clarify that, so Nexstar, it was in the midst of a major merger deal that needs the approval of the FCC, run by Brendan Carr.
That's right.
And Brendan Carr is a Trump supporter.
I will go further than you, and probably than you'd want to. Brendan Carr is a Trump toady. He has his job because Trump likes him. He keeps it because Trump likes him. like many people, almost everyone in senior echelons of the Trump administration, they understand that their job is contingent on the personal whims of the man in charge, and that what he wants is for you to go after his enemies and punish them.
All right. Well, Zack, it's worth remembering briefly now that this is not the only attack on free speech that we've seen, of course, since Donald Trump came back to the White House. Now, last week, the administration brought in restrictions on Pentagon reporters. Just tell me about that.
Yeah, I'm struggling to understand exactly what they're thinking here. Because from what I've read, and this is Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, in this new memo they released that says they will not allow reporters to work inside the Pentagon if they won't make some kind of commitment to not publishing unauthorized information, which is, that's their job, right? Like that's what reporters do. It's why we exist. Our point is not just to be stenographers for the government, to propagandize what they want to tell us or what the military says is okay for us to say. Our job is to be the public's ombudsman, right? To be a check on power, to say, hey, here's a thing that people might not want you to know, or here's some context that you need in order to make sense of what the government's trying to tell you, to evaluate whether it's right or wrong, and for the public to trust that's not coming from them. For Hegseth to do this is to basically say, I don't want there to be any press saying anything I don't want at all. Screw you, screw the First Amendment. We don't care about the very basic principle or the very basic purpose of a free press in our country.
Trump, he's also barred the Associated Press from the Oval Office. He's gone after Voice of America, the international broadcasting service. He's suing all sorts of media organisations. It's adding up to be pretty concerning, I would have thought, at this point.
Yeah, no, that's right. You can add in defunding the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which helps support not only PBS and NPR, which are, the closest things we have to something like ABC in the US, but also tons of local stations. The other thing that really concerns me, setting aside even, just the direct attacks on the press, are the way in which they are using policy to consolidate media ownership. Now, two examples. One is a family at CBS named Larry and David Ellison, a father and son, right-wing billionaire family. And they own CBS. They're apparently putting together a bid to buy the parent companies of CNN and HBO. They also are trying to acquire the Free Press, which is a right-wing publication in the United States. The head and founder is a woman named Bari Weiss. And they're talking about putting Bari Weiss in charge of both CBS and CNN. So that, to me, set off gigantic alarm bells, right? This is exactly how things worked in Hungary, where the government made sure that it didn't necessarily own all the media, but it made sure that private media owners had an interest in selling to government-friendly sources and putting people who are ideologically simpatico to the regime in charge of hiring and firing. And then there's this other wild card, which is an effort to force TikTok, as part of negotiations with China, to spin off its U.S. division and sell it to a group of investors, which include, guess what, the Ellisons, and also another MAGA-friendly billionaire, Silicon Valley type named Mark Andreessen. So when you put all that picture together, not only the direct frontal efforts to restrict the press's ability to report or cut off its funding, but also to change the structure of media ownership in the United States, such that a truly unprecedented amount of media, both new and old, are being controlled by government-friendly billionaires. That's really, really scary stuff.
Yeah, it sure is. All right, well, Zack, we know Jimmy Kimmel is the second talk show host, as you mentioned, to be shown the door in recent times after Stephen Colbert. The president would like to see others go, I presume. So who's next, do you think?
Who's left? Right? Seth Meyers, I have to imagine, is feeling a little bit of heat. Jimmy Fallon, who has been much more toned down compared to some of these other hosts in criticizing Trump, also someone that Trump doesn't like for some reason. Trump is a creature of old media, right? So those people are at the old networks, the old broadcast networks. So I would imagine that they're feeling some heat right now. I don't know what levers Trump is going to use next. I don't know if he'll have a pretext as good as this. Right now there's a real climate of fear, right, after Charlie Kirk's death, we haven't seen the end of this. Really troubling.
Zack Beauchamp is a senior correspondent at Vox and the author of The Reactionary Spirit, a book about the decline of democracy in the 21st century. This episode was produced by Jessica Wukyanov. Audio production by Sam Dunn. Our acting supervising producer is Sydney Peat. I'm Sam Hawley. Thanks for listening.